Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello, my single solitary viewer, and welcome to a brand new series because all sports have been cancelled. So welcome back to sports again. For those who are sports fans, and for those who are not, of course, I'm going to try to make this still an engaging watch. So welcome to NHL 20 franchise mode. I've got here the created teams, and we're going to do a draft to draft some players. We've got the Quebec Assassins and the farm team, the Brossard Dragons. And they're going to be going into the Atlantic Division, and we're sending Detroit, the Red Wings, into the Western Conference, where they used to be back in the day. They've never been happy about being there, really, because of the travel costs, but, well, sucks to be Detroit, as usual. So there's a lot of modes here that I'm turning off because I find them annoying. So we're going to start the careers. I also have some slight changes to the rules, mostly in terms of the penalties. I tend to take a puke ton of penalties when I play, and I'm fixing that, of course. Otherwise, the difficulty level is All-Star, so we'll be heading into the expansion draft, but before we do that, and while we wait for the game to load, of course, it's a loading screen simulator, of course, it's a EA Sports game. I want to go first. I want to go to view draft class. Because before I do the expansion draft, I want to know what rookies I can draft with my pick, which is probably going to be bad. I already know here it's going to be the 5th overall, and of course, 5th overall is Goran. I don't want that, so I'm going to be needing to trade during the amateur draft. I'm interested here in Martindale, especially, of course, because he's a franchise player, so I'm going to try everything I can to get that franchise player. And I might try, if I can, to nab one of the other elite prospects. Now, also, I like to check in the American players and some of the Russian players to see if there's another, dark horse here I can find in this initial draft. But I'll be honest, none look good. They don't look good. I'm not going to risk anything. I think I'm going to assume they're all bad. And I'm going to essentially get rid of all my later than round number 1 picks. I'm going to pick early or not at all, and I'm going to trade the rest. So off we go to the expansion draft, and as you can see, perhaps I've already guessed, but this is some post commentary here, because I'm testing how to record on the PS4 for hopefully to do a series for The Last of Us. But here, of course, I'm trying it out with NHL 20, but I don't currently have the means of recording my voice live. So in the Anaheim Ducks, my choice is very easy. As you saw, it was Jones, and that's a young kid who's a 21-year-old. He's a top 6 forward potential, but what's going to end up happening, as I told you, we're pre-recording, is I'm going to trade him in the draft, the amateur draft. Here with Arizona, the correct pick probably would be to take Antti Ranta, who's a solid number 1 goaltender at age 30. He could win me some games. Unfortunately, I put my team in Quebec City. I named them the Assassins because that's a name that is both in French and English. Les Assassins, the Assassins of Quebec City, de Quebec. Another player I could have taken would have been Kyle Capobianco because he's a young man with a top 4 potential on the blue line. But again, I'm going with the hometown boy, Jason Demers, because, well, I need some local representation is what I need. Fast forward through, and we're moving to the future. I've selected a player from every single team, sometimes for chemistry reasons, sometimes for trade purposes, sometimes I just want money, something to trade. So I'm taking Senishin, a young kid from Boston, McCabe, a decent defenseman from Buffalo, Giordano, who's a captain potential, or trade bait, Edmondson from Carolina, Ian McCoshen from the Hawks, Nichushkin, or whatever you pronounce it, from Atlanta, Anderson from the Blue Jackets, Denis Gurianov. Now, Gurianov has potential. He reliably grows, but he doesn't fit with the chemistry of my team, or my coach, rather, so I'm going to send him the farm. In Detroit, I think I'm changing my mind. I won't take Perlini. I'm going to take Madison Bowie instead. I think maybe he has more trade value. At least that's what I'm hoping for. In Edmonton, I'm taking Adam Larson, Anton Strawman from Florida, and that's pure trade bait. The Kings have really no good player to offer. This time, I'm taking more. Usually I take Luff. Eric Stahl, it could be number one center from the Minnesota Wild. Xavier Ouellet from Montreal. Saros from the Predators. Carrick from New Jersey. New Jersey, just like the Kings, they really have nothing to offer. Here I'm checking if, it might be worth taking someone else, and indeed, I'm going to be choosing Ben Street instead. He's not as good as Carrick, but I have a lot of little defensemen that I don't need. I'm going to have an excessive amount of defensemen, and so taking a center for the farm team is going to do. Derek Brassard is going to be my number one center, actually. Local boy for the Quebec team. Well, he's not actually literally from Quebec City, but he's from the province. Jesper Fast from the Rangers. Herluck from the Senators. Niskanen from the Flyers. I'm probably going to try to trade him, but if not, I'm glad to keep him. Connor Sheary from Pittsburgh. Sometimes he develops rather well, so he could be a keeper. Stefan Newson from San Jose, who really don't have much good things to offer, but usually he's a reasonably good fourth liner. Samuel Blais from the St. Louis Blues the chemistry is okay, but I'm planning on making him spend the first season as the first line center of the farm team so that he develops into a top six player. Ryan McDonough, I'm taking as trade bait from Tampa Bay. Johnson from the Leafs. Sometimes I usually take a different player from the Leafs, Hyman usually, but I've decided to go with Johnson this time. Thatcher Demko from the Canucks. He's going to be the goalie of the future of the franchise. Sprong from the Capitals. Does not fit with chemistry, but he's a prospect that should develop well. And I have no choice but to take a goalie from Winnipeg. So I'm taking Comrie, who should be able to play in the pro. Maybe he's actually going to be the number one goalie for the first season. And off to the amateur draft we go. And our first mission, of course, is to, as fast as we can, acquire the first pick overall that belongs to the Colorado Avalanche. We want that first pick overall to draft Martindale, the franchise player. And of course, I'm expecting to try and get another top four pick. But first, let's talk with Anaheim. What am I saying? Anaheim. With I saw the big A of the Avalanche, but let's talk with Colorado and obtain their pick. Now I'm sending McDonough, and McDonough, that I called trade bait just a little bit earlier, is not enough to net the pick. So here I'm sending Senishin or Jones. I really want to keep Blais and Sprong. So I'm gonna send him Senishin, and that's not enough. It's definitely worth it to get the franchise player to add a pick or two. So here I'm gonna fail at selecting the third round pick. I'm trying, I'm trying with a low ball offer until I get what I want by adding more and more and more on the plate. Now there we go. The trade was accepted. That was a pretty sweet deal, actually. And Elijah Martindale will be ours as soon as it loads. The fog of war is on. That means that my scouts have not really properly scouted the player, and I don't know how good he is. Like you'll see, there's little question marks around where the overall would be. So I'm not sure how good he is, but I've been told he's NHL ready, and he's a franchise player, so I gotta expect to see him on my first or second line, I imagine, at this point. Now we're skipping ahead just a little bit. I'm trying to obtain the second pick overall from the Buffalo Sabres, and they're being quite stubborn. I'm giving them the 5th pick overall. I really shouldn't need to be giving them this much stuff to, to even things out. They reject everything. I'm going to add Strawman, Jones, my first pick, and my 3rd pick. And finally, we have a trade. It's worth it. Ultimately, it's worth it because instead of getting a top 4 defenseman, I'll be getting an elite defenseman because I plan on drafting little Spencer James, and he's not that little, he's 6'2", but that's what I want. I want some talent on the blue line as well, or at least some future great talents that I can build the franchise of Quebec City around in the future. I'm done. We're done here. We did everything we could. I have nothing else to trade. Otherwise, the team will be completely devoid of talent, as opposed to future talent, but of present talent. And I'm already expecting problems with meeting the minimum cap of the salary cap. There's gonna be some challenges in this first season. There's gonna be some challenges. And from there, we trade the rest of our picks and finish the draft. The reason is because the players that are available for this draft, because an expansion draft, and there's already been a second draft. It's weird. It's the second draft of the same year, just because of the way I did the franchise, and so there's no players of talent available. And that way, I just trade the rest of the little picks, except for the top 4 guys of the draft. The rest are crap. Oh, well, okay, I guess Likachev is an actual top 6 forward. He's not bad, but it's not worth, fighting over either. And now it's time to quickly check, what we have on the team so far, because I'm going to have to fill up the rest of the roster of this team with free agency and try to field a full farm team in Brossard. Les Dragons de Brossard. The Dragons of Brossard. And they're not going to be strong players, so I don't know. I suppose I could skip ahead that as well. So in the end, Jason Pomainville and Marcus Kruger are the only 2 pro players I'm making offers to. A bunch of farm players as well. There's also some minor coaching changes and a lot of changes in the scouts, but nothing really of great interest. None are big acquisitions. So you can see I've got a whole load of new scouts that are accepting the job proposals that I've sent them, and they're really overjoyed to come over on board on the team. And lucky me, I get offered some crappy trades, and I'm like, oh, what did I do to deserve such a crappy trade, computer? Oh, you're so nice with me. Yeah, I'm just going to decline that. Thank you. That out of the way, Jason Pomainville and Marcus Kruger are both accepting my contract offers, as are a plethora of farm team players they're going to be beefing up the ranks in Brossard. So sprinting ahead in time, we find ourselves on the date of September 13th, or almost. We're past a few days, actually, past September for the 13th. We're in September, and we finished the preseason games. Nobody cares about the preseason games, honestly. And Jake McCabe does not fit on my team. I got too many defensemen, and I want to trade him before it is too late. And so I'm offering him to all the teams in the league. See what I can get. Now, they're giving me some stuff. A lot of those trades do not seem really interesting to me, to be honest. Perhaps taking Kudobin here might have been a good move, but I'd really like to get at least a second-round pick if I can get that, at the very least. So maybe whoever is the last team, Philly right here. Oh, and Raffle. Well, Raffle is not very good, but I think I have an opening for Raffle actually on the roster. I think I can use him. So a second round pick and Raffle, I think will work nicely for me. after the preseason games, I'm starting to have a better idea of what my roster currently looks like. Most of the players are still not very well scouted. For example, I'm starting to get an early overall of 79 for Martindale, same as Raffle. But the coach is really insistent on putting Martindale on the first line, so I suspect he's got at least 82 overall or something like that. And now it's time to check around, see if I can get some extra chemistry. So I like the fact that Nichushkin, Blais, and Anderson have good chemistry. I just want to see if I can find some other combinations of players that I can put together, because chemistry is actually rather important in the team. So what I do is I look at the scheme fit in the bottom right of the screen, and now based on this, I can put Anderson on the first line, Johnson on the second, and I get +3 chemistry on both first line and second line. That's actually something that could make this team that has a roster of players that weren't good enough to be protected by their initial teams, and now that's how they fell into the dirty hands of the Assassins, the double asses of Quebec City. And my plan was initially to have Brassard on the first line. That's where I expected him to be, and I noticed that chemistry-wise, he still works. I don't need Blais on the roster. Blais, I know from experience that he starts with an overall of 79. He probably should play in the farm this season. That's where I expect to see him. So the fact that I can get the same kind of chemistry with Brassard and Stahl as the first and second lines centers, that's good news to me. Now I'm a little. I wish the chemistry was a little bit better for the defensemen, but nothing's perfect. It's finally time for the first game ever of the Quebec City Assassins franchise, and it's going to be a road game in Edmonton. And of course, Edmonton, they have one of the most, actually they have several of the most talented players to ever lace the skates. We're talking Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid, among others on the team. It's going to be a tough and very tall order. Thankfully, Edmonton do have some flaws, so perhaps my little team that could, maybe they can. Except, of course, not after I get my shot blocked straight away, and then my pass is intercepted.
Edmonton's got the puck against the half wall.
So here we are, the first goal in franchise history, and it's an own goal. Complete bullshit goal, by the way, but the honor goes to Mark Giordano, first goal for the Quebec City Assassins. Of course, it's an own goal, so that doesn't actually count in hockey. It would in soccer, but not in hockey. But that's a terrible fluke goal.
Quebec City's gained possession along the boards. Settles things down and gets control of it once again. Denies him with a save.
And the first goal in Quebec City Assassins club franchise history goes to Eric Stahl. Congratulations, Eric Stahl. He's won Stanley Cups, and now he scores the first ever goal for the Quebec City Assassins. Of course, now the referees are arguing that this is not a good goal because he would have done some goalie interference. I say that's bullshit. That goal in the NHL would have that would have been allowed. The defenseman pushed Eric Stahl onto the goalie and barely touched him. So I think that would have been a goal. But yeah, so it's no goal actually. That's a goal though. Unfortunately, now the Oilers are taking a 2-0 lead. And I think that's the first. I was wondering if that was his first career goal. I guess it isn't. But that was a little bit of a weak goal in the sense that Eric Comrie here should have probably had better rebound control. So we've got two fluke goals against. Let's see if the Quebec City Assassins can pull through, and they can! Finally, first goal. And franchise history goes to Joshy Anderson. He's the first ever to score after Eric Stahl and after Mark Giordano. He scores the first ever goal for the franchise. And, you know, it's from a rebound. And then sends it top corner.
Takes the feed from the left side.
And now we've got a tie game. Beautiful little slap shots into the bottom left corner of the net from Jesper Fast, which I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. But hey, sue me. I'm probably doing better than the play-by-play guy. So that was a great back pass. That was intentional, by the way. It's strategic. But here we go. Edmonton taking a nasty, nasty penalty, and the Quebec City Assassins are going on the power play. I think we could take the lead in this one. If we can get the puck. Which apparently... Okay.
Taking the lead now, you control it. You push the pace, you push the other guys back on their heels.
That's embarrassing.
That's a tough one to give up right there, James. You've got the power play, you think you're going ahead, you give up a shorty. Oh, that's difficult to stomach.
It's very difficult to stomach, Ray. It's very difficult to stomach.
Slides it over to Kruger.
But I'm still on the power play, though. So perhaps the boys can do a little bit of magic and tie the game back up. Here we have it. Marcus Kruger, who I have no clue what he's doing on the power play. He's like the fourth center. And I suppose, you know, the team is lacking for talent. So I guess they'll take the goals from whoever can offer them. But that was a sweet, sweet little pass, cross-crease pass from Josh Anderson again.
And that'll do it for period number 2. And as both teams head down their respective tunnels, they'll think about a third period with a 4-3 game. Welcome back, everyone. He's Ray. I'm James. Third period action ready to go. Well, let's see what
by the looks of it, I think I do believe I skipped a goal, actually, in the highlights. I missed it somehow, but I'm pretty sure that was James, the rookie defenseman, the elite rookie defenseman that I drafted second overall in the amateur draft, getting his first career goal. And yes, that went away, but this one didn't. This one has been saved. And that's Elijah Martindale, our franchise player and first draft pick overall, also scoring his first ever goal in his first ever game. In the first ever game of the franchise. So things are starting to look up for Quebec City. Things are coming up. Assassins. Assassins. Now for the butt gang out there, I think you're starting to understand why Assassins is the best team name you can have.
Been the better team offensively tonight. A lot of scoring chances, and they lead it late in this third period. Taken by Demers. Here's a short pass to Larson.
That could have been ugly, actually.
And now he moves it to Bear. With possession along the wall. With the blast.
Oh, they could have scored there. Don't underestimate a team that is desperate and has an extra attacker on the ice. But when you have an extra attacker on the ice, that means you're leaving an empty net behind, and Jesper Fast can score his second goal of the game, and that's going to be it.
First career goal, he'll always cherish that. I'm sure in the interview he'll say, yeah, but it was most important the team won. Hey, we lost the game. I scored my first goal, 10-5. I didn't care. I had a goal. I was so happy.
That's Ray with an I, right?
Yes.
For my broadcast partner, Ray Ferraro, my name is James Cebulski.
Well,
thanks so much for joining us. Good night.
Thank you very much for watching the first episode of the Quebec City Assassins franchise. I'll see you in the next episode, hopefully. See you then. Bye-bye. Sponsored by the Flues Crew on Patreon.